visiting amarpathshala.com. This is the final lecture from the chapter, The Respiratory System. In this chapter, we are going to discuss about respiratory health. From common cold, coughing, sneezing, to complicated diseases like bronchitis, emphysema, and so on. So without wasting any more time, let's begin. So part 3 is mainly about respiratory health. Before digging into the respiratory health issues, let me begin by dividing our respiratory tract into two parts, the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract. As you can see in the diagram, these are the components of the upper respiratory tract. See guys, the nasal cavity, nose, our nostril, tongue, larynx, esophagus, trachea, and the sinus cavity, right beyond the nasal cavity. Opening of the eustachian tube, the tube that connects our ears and our nasal cavity together. Pharynx, glottis, epiglottis, these are all the components of the upper respiratory tract. Now, when we find or when we feel any issues, any health issues that are occurring in this area, we call it a respiratory health issue of the upper respiratory tract. Now, what are some of the diseases that we might encounter on the upper respiratory tract? Tonsillitis. As you can see on your screen, that tonsillitis is an infection of the tonsil. What is the tonsil? Tonsil is a salivary gland that is found on the upper respiratory tract. So, when that salivary gland is being infected, mainly by a viral or a bacteria, virus or a bacteria infects the tonsil gland, which is located in the pharynx, we call the inflammation or the infection tonsillitis. Another disease that might occur on the upper respiratory tract is laryngitis. As you can guess from the name, laryngitis is a disease that takes place on our larynx or the vocal cords. So when the vocal cords are being affected, what happens is that you have difficulty talking. The vocal cords are infected by a virus or a bacteria, and then what happens is that they get inflamed. So when you are to talk or even swallow or use those muscles for any purpose, it hurts or it may feel uncomfortable. And when that happens, you can safely assume that you may be suffering from laryngitis. So these are examples of some of the health issues that may appear on the upper respiratory tract. Now, if we were to go down the lower respiratory tract, what would we find? See, these are the components of the lower respiratory tract, or something that we have discussed so far on our previous lectures. If you have followed my lecture part 1 and 2, you will know that we have so far discussed everything that is present on this diagram on your screen. So, the lower respiratory tract is composed of the larynx, right bronchus, clusters of alveoli, trachea, left bronchus, bronchiole. So any effect, any health issue that is happening in anywhere in this part is an issue of the lower respiratory tract. Now, what are some of the issues or diseases that we may encounter on the lower respiratory tract? Some of the diseases that we may encounter on the lower respiratory tract are as follows. See, bronchitis is a very common disease. I, as a kid, had bronchitis, and although I do not remember what it felt like, but I have heard that it was pretty painful for me, because when I encountered attacks of it, I was told by my mom that there were times that I would go blue. So what happened to me during bronchitis? Bronchitis is a disorder, guys, that causes the bronchi, which are these two guys. These two guys are our bronchi. So bronchitis is a disease in which these two bronchus of ours, these two bronchi, become inflamed and filled with mucus, which is only expelled if we cough violently. So imagine this, the passageways which takes air inside your lungs. They're filled with mucus and you can't breathe in. And it's like someone is choking you. That's what it feels like when you're suffering from bronchitis, and that's what I might have felt as a kid. And then we have pneumonia, which is a deadly disease, very common, and it is a disease that occurs when the alveoli in the lungs become inflamed and filled with liquid. See, as far as we have studied or learned about alveoli in our previous lectures in part 2 and part 1, we know that alveoli is an air sac through which gas exchange mainly occurs. So alveoli, if filled with liquid, will not be able to allow gas exchange at all. And if gas exchange is not happening, it's like you're not breathing at all. So in pneumonia, what happens is the walls of the alveoli cells, it gets inflamed due to infection, and the insides of the alveoli it fills up with liquids. So gas exchange is interfered, or gas exchange is hindered, and the body is starved of oxygen. Body cannot have enough or any oxygen at all if the case is severe. Then comes pleurisy. It is a lung disorder that is caused by swelling and irritation of the pleura, the membrane surrounding the lungs. If you have followed part 1 and 2, you know what a pleural membrane is. It is a layer, a thin flap of covering on top of the lungs. Now, when that thin layer of tissue is infected, it gets inflamed, and when that happens, you contract what is known as pleurisy. Then comes emphysema, which is a deadly disease. Emphysema is an obstructive respiratory disorder. The name means that your respiration is obstructed when this disorder has taken place, in which the walls of the alveoli, the inside walls of the alveoli, they break down completely, and they lose their elasticity. And this also reduces the surface area for gas exchange, and which causes oxygen shortages. So basically, guys, it's like if you stripped thin the already thin alveoli, and there is very short area, very less area through which gas exchange will happen. Therefore, the gas that is supposed to get inside your body, the amount is decreasing significantly, and in the end, it's also as if you're choking. Next comes cystic fibrosis. Now, cystic fibrosis is a disease that is not very common in our region. It's common in regions such as America, Europe, but in our Southeast Asia region, we do not really contract cystic fibrosis, so you might not be acquainted with the disease. However, in your O-level or A-level syllabus, it might be necessary that you are to follow the disease cystic fibrosis. So it is a serious genetic condition. See, cystic fibrosis is a disease that isn't just something that happens to your respiratory tract, or it's not due to, say, smoking or inhaling harmful gases. It is a disorder that takes place due to a genetic condition. That is, you inherit it either from your parents or your grandparents and such. So it's a condition that affects the lungs. What happens is it's caused by an abnormal gene that disrupts the function of cells lining the passageway of lungs. So it's a gene, it's a faulty gene that changes the cell lining that's lining the lungs. So when that cell lining is changed, the secretions those cells make, the secretion the lining cells make, the secretion those cells lining the lungs make changes. As a result, you contract that disease. And all this happens because of a faulty gene that you inherited from any family member of yours. Next comes asthma, which is very, very common. It is a chronic obstructive lung disease. Chronic as in it happens from time to time. and it obstructs our respiratory system, as in our lungs, that affects the bronchi and bronchioles, and it mainly affects our bronchi and bronchioles, guys. So that makes it very difficult for us to breathe in. And then the most common lung cancer, which is associated with smoking, but then if you don't smoke, I cannot safely say that you will never have cancer. Lung cancer is when abnormal cell in your lung grows at a very fast rate, and it is as you can see on your screen, is the invasive growth of abnormal cells in lungs. So guys, until this part, we have discussed what the diseases that we may contract on our upper and lower respiratory tract. Now let us see in details, with the help of some diagrams, some very important diseases. So let's begin with a normal lung versus a diseased lung. These are cross sections of a normal lung and a diseased lung. Now if you look at your screen carefully, on diagram A, you can see a reddish, almost red-pink, healthy lung tissue. You can see that, these two lines are the bronchus, and then you can see the faint linings of the bronchioles. And you can see that the lung tissues are rich with blood, and they look healthy and they seem healthy. If you then divert your attention to the opposite side, you can see that this is a diseased lung. Look how shriveled up, bluish and lifeless it looks. See, the normal lungs have healthy red tissue. And see guys, in here, the heart is visible. So the tissues in the normal lung, they are alive and they are healthy, and you can almost see how good they are as you look up on the picture right on your screen. And on the opposite side, if you see the diseased lung, the tissues have gone black, and in the white, there are whitish areas, there are no traces of red or even the slightest of pink. And that has happened due to extensive smoking. The gases and the tar and the chemicals inside the smoke has diseased the lung, has destroyed the lung so bad that now it looks like this. The white areas that you see the white areas right here, here, these are tumors or carcinomas. These are malignant tumors that takes place when the lung is infected with cancer, and this lung was infected because of years of smoking. Now moving on, we have the disease emphysema. Now, as I have mentioned before, emphysema is a fatal obstructive respiratory disease. What happens in emphysema is, if you remember, I said before that in this disease, the walls of the alveoli are destroyed, as a result of which the surface area for gas exchange decreases. So you see that this is the picture of a healthy lung. In here you can see that in the first picture, these are the bronchioles are carrying healthy alveolus. But in the second picture, the alveoli are sort of marked, they are sort of destroyed. If you blow this diagram up, and you see a better picture, this is an alveoli with emphysema, and this is a microscopic view of normal alveoli. See how the walls are clearly defined in the second picture. See how it looks like a bunch of grapes in the second picture. This is what it looks like inside a healthy lung. But in the first picture, you can see that there are no visible walls, as if outside the outer wall, there is nothing in it. It's like a very thin, a very dimly shaped balloon. So this is what happens when you or anyone else contracts emphysema. The alveoli are destroyed. It is extremely difficult to breathe, and it's often fatal, as in the patient that has emphysema often does not survive. So besides cancer, what causes emphysema may be one of your questions. The answer is besides cancer. Smoking is one such reason why emphysema can contract, a person can contract emphysema. The alveoli, because they lose their inner lining, which is where the surfactant fluid, the surfactant fluid is something that we discussed in the second part of our lecture, if you have followed it. The inner lining is destroyed. As a result, the production of the surfactant fluid is hampered. And so the alveoli becomes very, very dry. And since the inner lining is destroyed, what remains is only the outer lining, and it's dry. So it becomes brittle, and eventually what happens, guys, is they rupture. It's like if you blow a balloon, and if you blow it to a point where the walls are extremely tight and then it can blow easily, if you apply even a little bit more pressure, or even a little bit more air, the alveoli that is contracted with emphysema, it becomes like that. And it's not just if you smoke yourself, or it's not that if you are breathing harmful gases. It's like if you are around someone who smokes a lot, if your friend smoker, if you're always present in a smoking zone, even that can cause these diseases to take place in your body, this is known as passive smoking, which is that you're not actively smoking yourself, but you're always inhaling smoke. Guys, passive smoking is even more dangerous than active smoking, because in active smoking, you're actually blowing out some of the gases, and those are mainly the harmful gases. But in passive smoking, you are actively inhaling the gases that are bad and that are being blown out. So next up, we have bronchitis and asthma. When I began discussing the diseases, I began with bronchitis. When I started discussing the diseases of the lower respiratory tract, remember I told you that I had bronchitis skin that I have no memory of right now, but I heard it was pretty bad. So this is what possibly my bronchus may have looked like when I was a kid and I had bronchitis. See, this is a bronchus which is that has inflamed, and the bronchial lining has swollen up. And this, in bronchitis, this swelling happens due to infection, and this infection eventually leads to coughing, fever, tightness of the chest. The chest feels like it's very tough. It has tightened up because you're always coughing, because it's always very tough inside. It's always very complicated inside. The inner lining of the bronchus has excess mucus, as a result of which the person who's suffering from bronchitis cannot take air in. And the walls of the bronchus is also inflamed due to infection, and they swell up. So as a whole, when you are suffering from bronchitis, it's a pretty ugly picture. You can't breathe properly, it feels disgusting and tight inside, you can't take air in, neither can you expel air out. It's as if something is stuck inside you, and you're trying very hard to let it out, but you can't. Then comes asthma. Asthma is probably one of the most common respiratory diseases, and there are asthma patients everywhere. What happens is, like bronchitis, there is bronchial swelling and blockage, and that kind of gives you a sort of a wheezing breath. Like when you breathe in, it feels like there's a wheeze sort of sound. It's definitely labored breathing, and when you breathe in or when you breathe out, sort of a wheeze sort of a sound comes up. That's because the inner lining is, again, layered with mucus, and the bronchus, it swells up, much like bronchitis. In this diagram, you can see a normal lung and airway. See, this is smooth muscle and the airway is clean and air can go in and out. But on the other side, you see what an inflamed lung looks like. It's almost like something has put it on fire. It's red and it's angry. And you see the line way, the airway, it's swollen up, number one, and then the mucus is lining it, making the whole lumen so short that not enough air can go in or out. And in the end, the last disease that we are going to discuss is cystic fibrosis. Now remember, at the beginning of the lecture, I told you that this is a disease that is not very common in our region. So cystic fibrosis is the most common inherited disorder in the Caucasian population, as in the population of US, Europe, Canada, etc. See, this disease, cystic fibrosis, since it's a genetic disease, it is inherited from either our parents or any family member that had the gene present inside their body. So this is an inherited disorder. But this is something that we do not usually see in this part of the region. So how does it happen, or what are the complications of the disease? Cystic fibrosis is caused by the mutation of a single gene, which we now know as CFTR gene, and which controls the salt balance in lungs. So what happens is that in our body, the gene responsible for the control of the salt balance in the lining of the lungs. Let me repeat myself. In our body, the gene that controls the secretions of the salt balance in the lining of our lungs, that gene, when it's randomly mutated, when its arrangement or when its structure is changed due to mutation, we have what is known as the CFTR gene. And what happens is the normal CFTR protein regulates the amount of chloride ions across the cell membrane of the lungs. When the gene is normal, when someone who is normal, who is not suffering from cystic fibrosis, this gene is responsible for how much chloride ion goes across the lung cells and how much chloride ion goes in and out of the lung cells. So this is a gene that is tasked with to see how much chloride ion goes in and out of the lung cell. It's like the guards of your home. They are tasked with how much or how many people that can come in your home and how many people can get out of your home on a daily basis. But when that gene is faulty, when that gene is mutated, what happens is that the interior of the cell is too salty, as in not enough chloride ion has left the cell. So water is drawn from the lung mucus. The mucus that is produced by some of the lung cells to create a healthy inner lung environment. Now, mucus is gel mainly, but then that gel is kept in its jelly-like structure because of the presence of water. Now, what happens is when you have too much chloride or too much salt inside the lung, because one of the gene is not functioning properly, water is taken inside of the cells much more than usual. Why? Because to balance the internal environment of the cells. So water is drawn out from mucus, of the mucus that is found in the lining of the lung. And when mucus loses its water, it becomes increasingly sticky. So it's like if your door is jammed and you put a little bit of oil in, but the oil is not fluid enough, it's not greasy enough. Rather than making your door easy to open, it's jamming your door. So when the mucus inside our lung loses water, it becomes more sticky. And what it does is that it blocks the airways, causing that the thick mucus becomes more sticky and it blocks the airways. And as a result of which, you are not able to breathe in properly. And in the end, it's the same as that happened in bronchitis or asthma. You can't take air in. It's difficult to breathe, and it's something like it feels like someone is choking you tight, and you're trying your hardest to take air in, but you can't. So that's what it's like, guys. That's what happens during cystic fibrosis, and that's what a patient may feel like. That it's kind of like you're in a chokehold and you can't breathe, and it's all because a sticky mucus lining is filling up, is blocking your airways, not letting enough air in. So guys, these were the diseases that were to be discussed in this chapter. I hope that I was able to explain everything to you to help you understand each and every condition that happens in each and every one of those diseases. Now, as we end our lecture, I have one question for you guys, which is as follows. In the 3 following options on your screen, 2 of them are lies and 1 is the truth. And I want you guys to figure out which one is the truth. So, as you can see, there is a chance that all 3 of them are lies or all 3 of them are true. But it is not so. The truth is the second one. Nicotine is one of the most potent neurotoxins on earth. So guys, this was the final part from the chapter, the respiratory system. In parts 1, 2, and 3, I have tried my best to help you understand the respiratory system in whole. We have discussed a lot of different kind of things. The respiratory system in simpler animals, the respiratory system in aquatic animals, and then the human respiratory system in whole. And in today's part, we discussed some of the most important and complicated respiratory diseases. Now, if you have any more questions and anything that you might like to add, please let us know in the comment section. And if my discussion, if my lecture has helped you, please subscribe to our channel. And thank you for listening to our lecture.